Transformation is about forming teams, building backlogs, and having the ability to produce working tested software.
We have to have complete cross-functional teams. So what is a complete cross-functional team? It's not a group of people working on a project. It's not a group of people dedicated to a project. It is that, but that's not it in its entirety. It's a group of about 6 to 8 people, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 4, right? Not being super dogmatic about that have ownership over their technology stack and are focused at a well-identified business problem. Backlogs is the next piece. Most organizations don't build backlogs the way backlogs were intended to be built. Backlog items are things that are a day or two big, right? You can start to measure the completion of them through the life of the sprint. They're very specific. They have acceptance criteria, right? You could use Bill Wake's INVEST model, independent, negotiable, valuable, estimatable, small, testable. I think it was Ron Jeffries' CARD, conversation, confirmation, right? There's lots of different ways of thinking about user stories or backlog items. But backlog items are discrete. They're interchangeable. They're clear. You can exit a sprint planning meeting and the team has clarity on what it's going to be able to commit to over the course of the next couple weeks. Most organizations do not put the time or energy necessary to build backlogs. If we do not form teams that are encapsulated and we don't give those teams clear backlogs, then that team will never be able to produce a working tested, increment of the product in some sort of stable velocity kind of way. The magic of Agile, right, that separates, in my opinion, Agile from total chaos is if I know the size of my backlog, I know the velocity of my team, I get to a definition of done at the end of every sprint, then I can start to measure how much of the backlog I'm gonna get through when my time runs out, or I can tell you how many sprints it's gonna take to get through it. Okay? So if you can't put together backlogs, if you can't form complete cross-functional teams, and then the last bit, right? If you can't get to a working tested increment of software at the end of the sprint, then Scrum's not gonna work. Most organizations are built for one of two things, predictability or adaptability. Markets are similar. Markets are built for what I call emergence or convergence. Either I'm inventing something new and I'm figuring it out, or I'm trying to converge on fixed time and cost and scope. So one of the things that we struggle with in the Agile community quite often is that we want everything to operate like a lean startup. Not every company is a lean startup. Not every company is even a good candidate for Scrum, per se, right? But most organizations can take advantage of this idea of operating in a more agile way. So one of the things that we started talking about was this idea of the lower left being the predictive convergent quadrant, right? That's where like traditional stuff tended to live, but you can do some agile in there too, versus the adaptive emergent quadrant. That's where kind of lean startup lives. Up in the upper left quadrant, you have this idea of predictive emergent, right? Which tends to be kind of chaotic versus adaptive convergent. So predictive emergent is the quadrant of I'm trying to make and meet commitments, but things are changing. The lower left quadrant is the quadrant of I'm trying to be predictable and I think I know what I want to build. As we move to the right, we start talking about where Agile tends to live. I call it adaptive convergent, right? We're trying to create optionality for change, but we're still trying to make and meet commitments on smaller planning horizons. And then in the upper right quadrant, we have the idea of lean startup, where we're built for change, and things are indeed changing all the time. A lot of times what you have to do is you have to come down into the lower left, you have to stabilize the system in place, you have to get predictable, but not doing like waterfall. We're gonna do something with like lean agile there. As we start improving the system, we start being able to reduce batch size, we start being able to break dependencies, right? We start creating the conditions where we can form teams, build backlogs, produce working tested software, do structure, governance, and metrics at scale, right? We can home base down in the lower right quadrant. So part of the conversation that we have to have is what is the value system of the company that you're in, and what are the attributes of the organization that are gonna force me to be in one quadrant or the other. The idea behind going Agile is never about adopting Agile. It's not adopting Scrum for Scrum's sake. There is absolutely a business problem that we are trying to solve. Even if we're trying to improve culture, even if we're trying to improve communication, even if we're trying to improve all these things, without some sort of business case, it's really difficult to make investments. As we've engaged the community, as we've engaged large organizations, what we found is that there's typically 6 different reasons, give or take, for people wanting to adopt Agile. The 6 things for me are typically predictability, right? We want to be able to make and meet commitments. We want high quality. We want to make sure that we're building the product in such a way that we're not putting crap in the market, right? We want early return on investment. Basically means we want optionality to deploy so that we can start charging money for things earlier. We want to basically be able to lower costs. Lower costs are tough, right? Because you guys are so overloaded. Sometimes you can lower costs, sometimes you can't. Sometimes what we need to do is we need to make sure that you're working on the highest value things, getting the most return on investment possible, okay, for the dollars that you are spending. And then innovation. Right? We want to be able to be innovative. We want to be able to disrupt our market and to find the next big thing. And we want to make sure that we're building the right product, right? We call that product fit. But basically, depending upon the goals of your transformation, what business problem you're trying to solve, that's going to shift the flavor of the Agile that you do. Because the business problem has to be big enough for the organization to make an investment in it. And whether you guys are using external consultants or whether you're using an internal team or whether you're sending people to training, money is being spent to solve a problem. And it's incumbent upon us as change agents to be able to prove to the organization that it's getting the business benefits associated with investing the dollars in the transformation. So predictability, quality, early return on investment, cost savings, innovation, and product fit.